I called my husband from the airport and said the words he'd been dying to hear. I agreed to the divorce, but I had one last condition. Come with me to Alaska. One final road trip. Retrace every place we fell in love. He thinks I'm trying to trap him. He has no idea I'm dying. Late-stage stomach cancer. 1 month left. I just wanted 7 more days of pretending we were still us. Before I let him go forever. The day I got my late-stage stomach cancer diagnosis, I called Stellan in the airport terminal. Stellan, I agree to the divorce. I don't want anything. My only condition is that you come with me to Alaska one last time, to retrace the paths we walked when we were in love. Stellan was quiet for a long time before his wary voice came through. Irene, what are you up to now? My mind drifted for a second. Bitterness rising in my chest. 8 years ago, we loved each other. Now, we could barely stand each other. I'm waiting for you at the security checkpoint in Terminal A. I said. Bring the divorce papers. The flight leaves in 3 hours. This is your only chance to get my signature. If you miss this window, the offer is gone. I hung up, then crumpled the test result, my death sentence, and tossed it in the trash. I pulled out my sunglasses and slipped them on, hiding my red, swollen eyes. Late-stage stomach cancer. Maybe this was my karma for being such a crazy woman. Ever since my cousin, Valentina Hawley, joined Stellan's company 2 years ago. He had been working late more often than not. It started with a casual comment. Your cousin's pretty interesting. Then, he couldn't go a day without mentioning her. I fought and raged, even cutting ties with my aunt's family, all for nothing. Valentina got promoted and became Stellan's personal assistant, and Stellan handed me a divorce agreement. 3 days ago, I received the 8th revision of those papers. I completely lost it. I trashed our house while crying and yelling at him. Stellan, you promised you'd love only me forever. Now that you've found someone younger and prettier, you want to go back on your word and abandon me? In your dreams, I won't step aside for her. You have to live, and you have to suffer with me, until the very end. You'll never get rid of me. Then fate slapped me in the face, leaving me with just a month to live, so I decided to let go. Since I couldn't bind him to me for another 70 years, I'd cling to him for 7 more days. Stellan arrived at the airport soon after, pushing a suitcase I'd never seen before. It was probably packed by Valentina at the last minute. The moment he spotted me, he rushed over and started snapping at me without a second thought. Irene, can you stop acting on every whim? Do you have any idea how much trouble it was to cancel work at the last minute? When will you ever be reasonable? All that trouble, and he still came, determined to get divorced. My heart ached, but with my sunglasses hiding my expression, I assumed a nonchalant air, folding my arms. I've never been reasonable. Didn't you know? I shot back. You used to love this wild, impulsive side of me. You could have stayed behind. I'm perfectly fine staying married and pestering you for the next 70 years. I wanted to talk calmly with him, but after these 2 years, we'd become nothing but bitter enemies. I couldn't even remember how to speak to him peacefully anymore. Stellan pressed his lips together, as if he found me completely unreasonable. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself, then asked, So, can you give me a reason? Why do we have to go to Alaska before the divorce? I turned away to stare at the planes on the tarmac, trying to keep my voice steady. 8 years ago, you asked for my number on the Alaska highway, saying I was prettier than a columbine blooming on a high ridge. 7 years ago, we watched the golden glow of the sunrise on Mount Foraker together. You told me you loved me and wanted to be with me. 5 years ago, you took me to the Alaska Native Heritage Center and proposed to me. We made a wish together, saying that this life, enough. Stellan suddenly cut me off. Frowning, he stopped, looking down at me with a complicated expression. What's the point of all this? Is this just another tactic to avoid the divorce? I looked at him and gave a bitter smile. Can't you trust me one last time? Have I ever broken a promise to you? My words only made Stellan's expression darker. He was silent for a moment, then looked away, saying awkwardly, I'll go with you. But don't expect nostalgia to change anything. You can remind me of how we loved each other all you want. It won't stop this divorce. The smile on my lips froze for a moment, then I nodded. I know. As long as you drive with me for 7 days, I'll never bother you again. After another long silence, Stellan glanced at the bag slung over my shoulder and frowned. You're planning to go to Alaska with just a bag? That's ridiculous. We'll buy what we need when we get there. You'll have to change out of that suit anyway. My bag held nothing but the necessary documents, and a full set of makeup to hide the truth that I was dying. As for the expensive clothes, there was no need to bring them. I never planned to come back. After all, I'd let my life flare up one last time in Alaska's thin mountain air, and then, a devoted priest would conduct a rare and ancient funeral ceremony for me. I wouldn't leave anything behind. The plane took off quickly, and a few hours later, we landed in Anchorage. I'd never suffered from altitude sickness before, but the moment I set foot on the ground, a wave of suffocation wrapped around me, and my stomach twisted with cramps. I reached into my bag, shook 2 cancer pills into my palm, and swallowed them without water. Stellan, walking ahead, happened to glance back just then. He paused, surprised. What are you taking? I hesitated for a moment, about to answer, but he scoffed. Is it those little antidepressant pills again? The sarcasm in his voice was like an invisible hand squeezing my throat, leaving me speechless. Years of endless arguments had left me with severe depression. At my worst, I mixed the pills into ice cream and ate them spoonful after spoonful, only to throw up until I bled. But it never made Stellan feel sorry for me, never made him regret. To him, I was just a crazy woman, faking depression for sympathy. So now, I simply put the pills back in my bag and replied offhand, for altitude sickness. Maybe I imagined it, but Stellan seemed to relax a little. He slowed his pace. I remember you never got altitude sickness. How did your health get so bad in just a few years? A few years was all it takes for love to fade, for people who swore to be together forever to drift apart. Getting sick doesn't seem so hard to understand after all. I didn't answer. I just said, don't worry. I won't let it mess up our trip. Stellan frowned but said nothing. We rented a car and changed into more casual clothes. I took off my designer dress and heels, slipped into a simple long skirt and white flats. He traded his tailored suit for a windbreaker and hiking boots. When we looked at each other again, we both seemed lost in thought. For a moment, it felt like we were back at the beginning. Back when he wasn't a cold CO, and I hadn't been battered by life. We were wild and free, full of reckless energy, loving each other with abandon. Stellan looked at me with a hint of emotion, as if he wanted to say something. A flicker of hope rose in my heart, but then he said, that skirt looks nice on you. Maybe get one for Valentina, too. It was like a bucket of ice water poured over my head, chilling me to the bone. He seemed to realize what he'd said, frowned, and tried to explain. I cut him off. No need to explain. If you want to buy her one, go ahead. But something this cheap isn't really your style, Mr. Paxton. I didn't want to hear his explanation, just more reminders of how special Valentina was to him. My tone was sharp, and Stellan's face darkened immediately. So I misspoke? And you start up again? I'm here with you. Isn't that enough? Can you stop making a scene? His barrage of questions left me speechless. The curious looks from people around us felt like invisible slaps across my face. I blinked away the sting in my eyes, held back my emotions, and said nothing more. Stellan's voice softened. All right, that was my fault. Just calm down, okay? He paid the bill and left with our stuff. On our first day in Alaska, we parted ways in anger. I stood there for a while, then headed alone to downtown Anchorage. There's a private art gallery downtown, where Stellan and I once bought a painting from the owner, Raphael Maloney, to mark our love. I didn't expect, after all these years, that he'd recognize me right away. Miss Godwin, or should I say Mrs. Paxton? Long time no see. Are you here with Mr. Paxton? I smiled at him. Long time, no see. Just call me Miss Godwin. I'm here to ask if you could paint another picture for me. Raphael was surprised, but quickly nodded with a warm smile. Of course. What would you like? Feeling the ache in my stomach, I paused for a moment and whispered, my portrait for the funeral? Raphael froze, staring at me in disbelief. I felt a little awkward and said, if you think it's bad luck, just pretend I never came. Raphael cut me off immediately. No, it's an honor. He said it quietly, his gaze lingering on my frame. Suddenly, I felt a pang of sadness. Even an old friend I hadn't seen in years could tell how much weight I'd lost. Yet the man who shares my bed and dreams hasn't noticed at all. Or maybe he has, but just doesn't care. I sent Raphael my favorite photo and arranged to pick up the painting in 7 days, then headed back to the hotel. I booked the same hotel where Stellan proposed to me years ago, and even requested the same room. I'd hoped returning together might stir up some memories. But when I walked in alone, the only thing left was the glow of the ambient lights. Stellan was already asleep. Disappointment washed over me, but then my attention was drawn to a plate of pasta left on the table. I paused, legs stiff, walked over, and saw that the plate was full, still steaming. The haze of warmth made my eyes sting and fill with tears. He would still leave me a plate of pasta, but he'd never wait up for me again. Maybe that's for the best, at least when I'm gone, he won't lose sleep. I forced down a few bites, but the stomach pain sent me rushing to the bathroom, where I threw it all up. Staring at my reflection, even my foundation couldn't hide how gaunt I'd become. All I felt was exhaustion. I'd imagined this trip as something unforgettable, but my body was burning out too fast for anything spectacular. The next morning, I woke to find Stellan sitting at the edge of the bed, watching me. For once, he offered an explanation. I was in meetings all day yesterday, so last night I was exhausted and the night before, he hadn't come home at all. Valentina had posted an Instagram of them drinking late together. I didn't bother to argue. I just murmured a reply, got up, and started my morning routine. As I was putting on foundation, Stellan commented, you look so pale now. You never wore makeup in Alaska before. I paused. If you want to call me an old hag, just say it. Stellan was caught off guard, his irritation flaring as he muttered that I was impossible, unreasonable, a pain in the ass. After another round of bickering, we checked out and rented an SUV, heading for Eklatina Lake. It's one of Anchorage's most iconic lakes. 8 years ago, after we exchanged numbers on the Alaska Highway, we bumped into each other again at Eklatina Lake. That day, the wind was fierce, and the lake sparkled. I was busy snapping photos with friends, and he handed me a thick shawl. Looking back, maybe it was that shawl that warmed me to my soiree. We parked by the lake, and as I was about to get out, Stellan's phone rang. He snatched it up quickly, but I still caught a glimpse of Valentina on the screen. I need to take this. His last word was drowned out by the sound of me slamming the car door. I got out, feeling his eyes on me, but I just pulled the shawl tighter and walked alone toward the water. The wind was even stronger than it was years ago, but sunlight washed the lake in brilliant blue. Standing at the shore, I felt none of the excitement or awe I once did, just a sense of peace. I thought, if my soul stayed behind after I died, embraced by a lake this clear, maybe death wouldn't be so frightening. Careful. Suddenly, a hand grabbed me. I turned to see 2 young women, concern etched on their faces. Miss, I saw you almost walk into the lake. Are you okay? Only then did I realize I was about to step into the water. My heart skipped, but I was touched, and I shook my head. I'm fine, thank you. Noticing how lightly they were dressed, I took off my shawl and handed it to them. Don't catch a cold, health is the best foundation for beauty. The words tumbled out, echoing something Stellan once said, and for a moment, I felt disoriented. One girl took the shawl, confused. But what about you? Before I could answer, the other glanced behind me. Is that your husband? He's really handsome. I turned and saw Stellan walking toward me, holding a jacket. His voice carried on the wind, tinged with exasperation. I knew you wouldn't take care of yourself. Come put this on. It should have been a tender moment, but it pierced my heart, and my eyes filled with tears. From yesterday's plate of pasta to today's jacket, taking care of me had become second nature to him, even if he no longer loved me. He held out the jacket, and I slipped my arms through the sleeves, then hugged his waist. Burying my face in his shoulder, my tears soaked silently through as I mumbled, Stellan, I really hate you. I hate how your heart always drifts toward whoever is younger and brighter. I hate how you forgot your promises. How you said you love me but never loved me enough. Most of all, I hate that I don't even have the strength to keep fighting for you anymore. Stellan stiffened, but for once, he didn't snap at me for being ungrateful. Slowly, he wrapped his arms around me and replied in a low voice, I know. He leaned in, gritting his teeth as he whispered in my ear, sometimes, I hate you too. My eyes burned even more, but somehow I couldn't help laughing. Here we were, holding each other so tightly, hearts pressed together, whispering about how much we hated each other. Behind us, I heard the click of a camera shutter. I stepped out of Stellan's embrace, and saw the 2 girls approaching, smiling as they handed us a Polaroid. You 2 are so sweet together. You're perfect for each other. Stellan took the photo, staring at our locked embrace in the image, unable to say a word. I smiled and played along. Yeah, we met here 8 years ago. Now we're back, reliving those beautiful memories. I spun our story into a fairy tale, painting our past as something magical. The girls were thrilled, saying Stellan and I made them believe in love again. I laughed too. They invited us out for seafood boils. As we turned to leave, I noticed Stellan's eyes were strangely red. He walked behind me, using his broad shoulders to shield me from the wind, and suddenly said, I should get a pair of sunglasses too. The wind here is brutal. Dinner turned lively with the girls joining us. I couldn't eat much, so I kept the conversation going. Watching their faces glow with youth, the pain in my body felt lighter for a while. After dinner, it was time to go our separate ways. They wanted to exchange contact info, but I gently joked, if fate wants it, we'll meet again. After all, there was no point in making new friends. I was about to die. Besides, every new bond comes with the risk of tears. Back in the car, Stellan, who had barely spoken, suddenly asked, weren't you always the type to make friends on the road? Why didn't you add them? I answered casually, learn my lesson. I don't give out my info so easily anymore. Stellan's face darkened, and though we stayed quiet for a long time, he didn't start a fight. He looked at me with resignation and said, can't we just have a normal conversation? You're so warm and chatty with strangers, but with me it's nothing but sarcasm and cold shoulders. I thought he was the unreasonable one. Strangers are just strangers. They haven't hurt me. He's the closest person in my life, yet he's the one who left me battered and broken, drowning in pain. I shot back. When I tried to talk to you before, You always said I was making a scene. When he loved me, my outbursts were adorable and lively. When he stopped loving me, my boldness and honesty became proof that I wasn't mature enough. I'd questioned myself, tried to reconnect, tried to go back to how things were, but it was useless. When I tried to be myself, he'd criticize. If I tried to be gentle, he'd say I was copying Valentina. Once love fades, nothing I do is right anymore. Stellan stayed silent for a long time. Only when the scenery changed did he quietly say, I won't say that about you again. I didn't respond. He seemed to forget. We don't have an again. As dusk settled, we climbed Hatcher Pass. Against the vivid sunset, prayer banners on the slope whipped and rattled in the wind. I'd heard that natives generally believe that all living beings and natural elements, including mountains, caves, and rivers, possess souls or spirits. Once, with my heart racing for Stellan alone, I stood by the mountain pass and made a wish to the distant lake. I want a love with Stellan that burns brighter than anything. Now, I steadied myself and smiled at Stellan. Let's take a picture together. The wind whipped my hair into a mess, and for a moment, he seemed lost in thought. He nodded, found another traveler nearby, and asked for help. As the man counted down, 3, 2, 1, say cheese, Stellan naturally slipped his arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. And silently, in my heart, I whispered, Stellan, may we go our separate ways and never cross paths again, in this life, or the next. When the picture was done, the man smiled. You two really seem to have something special. This time, I stayed quiet. Stellan nodded for us both. I sat on a rock nearby, watching him laugh and chat with others, feeling something inside me collapse. I used to think about getting hypnotized, erasing him from my memory. Now I realized it. This was the person I loved with everything I had. Maybe only death can finally bring it to an end. Stellan was still deep in conversation with the other traveler. Just about ready to head back, when my phone buzzed with a WhatsApp message. It was from Valentina. Renee, do you really think reliving your old memories with Stellan will win him back? Don't you know if I call him, he'll drop everything and come running to me? Maybe it was being back in Alaska that made my heart feel lighter. But what once would have made my blood boil now, just seemed childish and ridiculous. No wonder, back then, whenever I showed Stellan her messages, he'd just shrug and say, she's watched too many soap operas. Why let it bother you? Even his tone then had a hint of indulgence. I shook off the thoughts and typed back. Your biggest priority right now is to delete every romance app off your phone. Then I blocked Valentina for good. But just as I did, I saw Stellan pause mid-step, pull out his phone, and turn away to take a call. I silently started counting. At the 15th second, he turned to glance at me.